Hello, and welcome to Coaching for Successful Service, a webinar for Vista sponsors and Vista leaders. In any team, you're likely to encounter situations where team members could use some support or guidance to help them be successful in their service year. Coaching is one way to offer that support. This session offers an approach to coaching that's built on three key skills. I'm your host, Andy King, Senior Training Specialist with AmeriCorps Vista, and I'm pleased to introduce you to our presenter, Sharina Davis. Sharina is an International Coaching Federation PCC level coach, and she is a Senior Learning Specialist with Safe Horizon. Sharina is an AmeriCorps Vista alum, which we love, and she has successfully served as both an AmeriCorps member and a Vista program director as well. Sharina is also an independent consultant who's facilitated trainings for the Vista program. She's also offered Undoing Racism training for the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, as well as numerous other topics. Sharina, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Andy. I'm really glad to be here to talk with Vista sponsors and leaders about coaching. Part of my life's work is creating connections that support our humanity and well-being. Coaching directly links to that. I believe that as sponsors and leaders, you can create connections for Vista members by providing peer support, such as coaching, that enhances members' experiences and well-being. Let's take a look at what I hope we'll get out of our time together. We'll start by defining coaching and how it fits into the context of Vista service. Next, we'll discuss some listening, questioning, and reflection skills to apply in coaching. Finally, we'll have a chance to explain the GROW model for coaching and how the reflective process works with that. We're going to start with some fundamental information like defining coaching in the context of AmeriCorps Vista. Let's look at a definition of coaching from the International Coaching Federation. They define coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires people to maximize their personal and professional potential. I want to highlight that coaching is a holistic approach that focuses on the individual and what they want to achieve. It's a partnership in which the person being coached sets the direction, takes responsibility, and is ultimately accountable for the outcomes. There are two more key points that we need to consider about coaching and these roles. First, it's important to remember that while some members will want to be coached, others may not. A key attribute of coaching is that it has to be something the individual wants to do. It's really hard to coach someone who isn't willing. You can start coaching when you see the individual is ready and open to it. It is also crucial to discuss with members what coaching is and how your coaching relationship might work. Since the role of a coach is different from your stated roles as leaders and supervisors, it's important to be transparent with members about these differences. So let's look at how coaching differs from supervision. Supervision is a human resources management activity that takes place within the workplace setting. It's based on the goals of the organization and the employee's specific job. The role of a supervisor is to provide direction and ensure accountability in the employee. The goal of supervision is to make sure employees are meeting the organization's needs and that work is efficient and effective. Coaching, by contrast, is a practice that can take place in many settings, work-related or not, and focuses on meeting the needs and interests of the individual. Coaching aims to help the individual achieve their goals in areas like leadership, communication, or career progression. It often focuses on developing the individual's skills and fostering their own growth. Because we have both Vista supervisors and Vista leaders in this session, I want to say a few words about how your roles in coaching might differ. In a workplace, a supervisor may at times use coaching to help their direct reports grow professionally, deliver quality projects, and cope with the field's challenges. Because the supervisor is the manager who assesses the work the person produces, the employee or member may be motivated to paint a rosy picture for the supervisor. This may hesitate they may hesitate to admit that they don't know how something's supposed to go or hide the fact that their work has gotten off track. So while a supervisor has direct authority, the coaching relationship might be hindered by that same authority. By contrast, Vista leaders don't have management authority over the members on their team, so they can act as peer coaches. Peer coaching considers the level of congeniality leaders share with their members and the fact that leaders are not evaluating, managing, or telling the members what to do. Instead, they're supporting them in their efforts to reach their own development and well-being goals. A challenge Vista leaders may face is that members might not take coaching from the leader as seriously since the leader is not their manager. Leaders and sponsors will coach Vista members through challenges they face during their service. While every member and project is different, there are a few common areas where challenges often arise. First, the member's VAD may present some problems. The goals may be incomplete, out of alignment, disconnected from everyday service, or overwhelming. Some VADs include so many activities that the member might feel like it's impossible to complete this in 1 year, especially with a steep learning curve at the beginning of service. The reality of community work brings its own set of challenges: ambiguity, slow pace of change, scarce resources, resistance from stakeholders, and unpredictability. Members may face situations where they struggle to locate and secure important resources, or where they don't know what to expect or how to respond to changes. Finally, challenges can center around the Vista members' own characteristics. Members come from diverse backgrounds, and some may be stepping into their first professional role and need some extra guidance. Others enter service with misaligned expectations about their role, day-to-day tasks, or relationships. It's important to provide them with the support they need to recognize and overcome these challenges. So when should you coach? Basically, when the member needs it. Let's look at what that might look like for a typical Vista member. Vista members will need different amounts and styles of coaching at different points throughout their service, based on their skill levels, motivation, and individual needs. The typical Vista member generally begins their service with lots of enthusiasm, but not a lot of experience. They usually need significant guidance to learn about their role and to adjust to their project's challenges. However, as they progress through their service and become more self-sufficient, they may require less coaching overall.
All right, so let's reflect on what we know about coaching in our own context. And for this activity, we'll use the chat panel. And as a reminder, please be sure you send your response to everyone. So we'd like to hear from you on this question. In what areas might the members on your own team need some coaching? So again, drop your ideas about that in the chat and send to everyone. We'll give you some music in a couple minutes to think on it. All right, so we've got a lot of great responses here. I'll try to summarize some of them. One common thread that's come up here a lot are general administrative skills or general professional skills or things about the workplace or how to show up, some other things around time management and organizational skills, just kind of some general overall workplace type areas for development. Another area that I've seen show up here are specific to the VAD, the Vista assignment description, some specific role-related or task-specific coaching to help the member perform and meet the expectations of their role. And then another area that I saw mentioned maybe a couple times is around understanding the community and the team that they're working with. So sort of specific to their environment, I would say. So thank you for your responses to that activity. And Shireen, I wanted to check to see if anything here stood out for you.
Oh, you covered it all, especially around time management and community collaboration. So great work on identifying the areas where your members might need some coaching. Now that we've taken a look at what coaching is, we're going to take a look at what it might look like for VISTA sponsors and leaders working with their members. Let's get into some coaching skills. When the coach understands their role and how it differs from supervision, they create a productive environment for coaching to take place. 3 key coaching skills we're going to look at today are listening, inquiry, or asking questions, and reflection. The first skill of coaching we'll discuss is listening. There are 3 levels of listening to consider while coaching. First, self-focused listening includes listening to your own thoughts, body, emotion, and intuition. The next level is other-focused listening. Here, you are narrowing your focus so that all of your attention is on the other person or people. And finally, transformational listening is about listening to all that's happening in yourself, the other person or people you're with, and the environment. It's also listening for openings, new possibilities, emerging opportunities, and forces that generate change. What else is possible for this person or the people? In coaching, you're aiming for a space of transformational listening. Let's look at a few categories of listening practices. There are more details about these on your handout. Nonverbal engagement includes looking at the speaker, making eye contact, and listening with interest. You use open body, for example, leaning in appropriately. Nonverbal engagement also includes being aware of your facial expressions. Some other aspects of nonverbal engagement are authentically responding with nodding, and showing other non-interrupting signs of careful attention. Reflect on what you hear. When you are coaching, restate or paraphrase what the person has said to make sure you've understood it. This includes reflecting the feelings you've heard back to the person. Reflect both the cognitive understanding and the emotional understanding. You may say something like, I can understand and I can imagine feeling the way you do. To show these types of understanding, integrate the person's words, tone of voice, and body language to determine the full meaning of what you're saying. Finally, summarize what the person communicated to ensure clarity. A third listening practice is to acknowledge what you observed. This involves noticing and aiming for a space, exploring the person's emotions, energy shifts, nonverbal cues, and other behaviors. Make sure you do this without being judgmental. Now we have a brief case study that shows a snippet from the beginning of a potential coaching conversation. We'll read this together, and then Andy will ask you to respond to a question in the chat. Leslie, who is 3 months into their first term of service, is grappling with their professional roles since graduating from college. The enormity of their VAD and the lack of community support has left them feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. Being out of state also adds to their challenges. Leslie candidly admits I am flustered and unsure if I can handle this. I need some guidance. What should I do?
All right, so we'd like to bring you in on this scenario with Leslie. And we're going to use the chat, as Sharina mentioned, for this activity. The question is, what is a listening practice that you could use to move into a coaching conversation? So again, make sure you're sending your thoughts to everyone. Give you some music and a few minutes to pull your thoughts in there. All right, so many of you had a chance to drop in responses here, and what I'm seeing is really great. I'm going to do a little bit of summarizing and paraphrasing here. So many of you mentioned using paraphrasing and reflection to reflect back to Leslie what you have heard them saying. Other of you mentioned some nonverbal engagement things like making eye contact and open body language, just being visible and present for the member. And then some of you have talked about how you might use some questions. You might ask Leslie what it is that you'd like that they'd like to focus on with you, or asking how you can be most helpful, and then even some practical considerations here about finding out if this is a good time to have a conversation, or maybe checking back with them at another time once you've both had a chance to do a little more thinking. So lots of great suggestions here. It's clear you all are listening carefully. So thank you for those. And Sharina, anything that you'd like to add about this activity?
Definitely going in alignment with what people put into the chat is also having that opportunity for you to notice the change in Leslie's energy and demeanor that they may not have even noticed recently. So good work on applying the listening practices in this scenario. And we'll move on to look at another key skill for coaches, and then we'll come back to this Leslie situation. The second coaching skill is inquiry. A coach asks questions with the intention of helping the individual gain clarity about where they are, where they want to be, and how they can get there. When the individual answers questions, it helps them figure out what they need to do. We've put coaching questions into 3 categories. Discovery questions aim to reveal the basic facts of the situation to gain a greater clarity, to unearth possible options, and to explore the individual's existing insights. Discernment questions are used to see the situation from a different perspective, or to prompt the individual to prioritize among potential solutions. And finally, dislodging questions can be used to help them get unstuck from their current position so they can see other possibilities, including those that challenge existing assumptions or inspire commitment. Let's look at types of questions and examples in each category. Discovery questions are the most common types of questions used during the coaching session. Rapport building questions are often used at the beginning of a session to foster connection beyond the surface level. Tune into tune into how the other person is feeling and to make them feel more at ease. For example, a question could be, how has your week been? Or asking something about them that's not too personal. Open questions expand the conversation and how it will develop in the future. They often require thought from the person who's being asked, and the response can be long. An example is, what steps can you take to get you closer to your vision? Clarifying questions can help make sure everyone understands what is being said and to highlight key points of the conversation. An example of this is, can you say more about that? Sometimes in coaching conversations, the individual may feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem or get stuck trying to decide among various options. Asking discernment type questions can help the individual realize what's most important and find ways to approach the problem. Scale questions can be used to measure progress or gauge the importance of something. For example, a question might be, on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to carrying out this action? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is achieving this goal for you? Solution-focused questions help to break things down into manageable or achievable steps. Some examples are, what needs to happen to shift X? Or what will you do first? Sometimes a person can get stuck in their progress towards their goals. Dislodging questions can help them get unstuck and shift their thinking towards new possibilities. Focus questions to help move the conversation in a positive or constructive direction if the individual's thoughts are negative or limited. Some examples are, how will you overcome something similar? How did you overcome something similar in the past? And what resources did you draw upon to help you overcome this? Hypothetical questions help open the coachee's eyes to possible solutions that they might not have considered before. These are recognizable because they are very future-oriented. An example is, what would you do if you had unlimited resources? Miracle questions give the coachee the chance to envision or describe how the future will be different. An example is, can you describe how it would feel if your problem were just swept away?
All right, we're going to pause here for another activity. This time, give you a chance just to see how well you've been following along. So a poll will pop up on your screen. And here's the question. What is the purpose of using discernment questions in coaching? Is it to explore the individual's existing insights or reveal the basic facts of a situation? Is it to prompt the individual to prioritize among potential solutions or to challenge the individual's existing assumptions? So if you would, make the best selection from those 4 options and then click submit. We'll give you a few seconds to consider and get your answers in. All right, looks like most of you have gotten your responses in, so I'll give you just a few more seconds to make your final selection. Again, be sure you select submit so that your answer will get tallied up. All right, we'll go ahead and close off that poll and we'll reveal the best answer here. And that best answer is C. A discerning question has the purpose of prompting the individual to prioritize among potential solutions. So in this case here, A and B would be examples of what discovery questions can do, right? Exploring or revealing basic facts of a situation. And option D is associated with a dislodging question, right? Challenging assumptions to help the person get unstuck. So good work on that. Many of you got that one correct. And if not, it was a great learning opportunity. So thank you for participating in that activity. Back to you, Sharina.
Great. To wrap up our discussion about inquiry, here are a few general tips for structuring your coaching questions and the resulting conversations. Using empowering questions because they are open-ended builds awareness of values, encourages creativity, and elicits new learning or new action. Avoid questions that elicit yes or no questions such as do you or are you. Also, limit the use of why questions as they can sometimes come across as judgmental or put the person on the defensive, making them feel as though they have to justify their choices or actions. Instead, use questions that start with what or how. Ask one question at a time. Try to keep your questions short and simple. Stay curious. Use follow-up questions to help the individual uncover what they seek and find their own solutions. There's no simple answer to these questions. So as a coach, you have to get comfortable with silence. Silence makes space for the individual to consider the question and develop thoughtful and complete responses. So as you probably remember, Leslie, our VISTA member, who is 3 months into their term of service, the first term of service, is grappling with their first professional role since graduating from college. The enormity of their VAD and the lack of community support has left them feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. Being from out of state adds to their challenges. Leslie candidly admits, I am flustered and unsure if I can handle this. I need some guidance. What should I do? Now, with that, Andy will ask you to respond to the question in the chat.
All right. So in the conversation with Leslie, what is a question that you could ask Leslie to continue the conversation? You could ask a discovery type question, maybe to get more details or to clarify. It could be a discernment question to help Leslie prioritize the issues. Or maybe you could ask a dislodging question if Leslie seems stuck. So what we're asking you to do here is to write in the chat a specific question that you could ask Leslie to move the conversation forward. So we'll give you about a half a minute and some music to put your thoughts together. All right, great work here. It's clear we've got some coaches in the room with us already. Lots of really tremendous questions here. If you had a chance You may want to scroll up and look at what some of your colleagues have submitted, give you some other ideas. I see questions here in all three different categories. Some folks asking for clarification, right? Some discovery questions, tell me more, give me a little bit more background or information about it. Some discernment questions here about what's most important to you. If there's one thing I can support you with, what would that be? And then even some dislodging questions to, help us to get unstuck, like, tell me what you've done before that seems to have worked, or how have you been successful in handling other challenges. So great work there. Sharina, I'm guessing you may have some thoughts as well about what's been shared here.
I appreciate the question around what's stressing you out the most. So really getting the opportunity for the member to lean in and share that response. So thank you all for those responses to the case study. And let's move to look on at the third key coaching skill. The final skill we're going to talk about today is reflection. Reflection is about stepping back and taking a look at what's happening and taking time to discuss together. So when we say stepping back, we mean removing yourself from the immediate experience to consider multiple perspectives and increase your awareness of your own actions or reactions. For example, you might find specific times to engage in reflection where we pause our day-to-day schedule to focus on a particular topic. When we reflect, we take time to consider our work and its impact, as well as to discuss and process what has happened. Reflection also allows us to sort through our thoughts and feelings about our observations, actions, and relationships. For example, at the end of a member's term of service, a leader or sponsor might have a reflection conversation with them about the overall impact they made on their organization. Now that we've reviewed coaching, specific skills of listening, inquiry, and reflection, let's define the reflective process as it relates to the reflective coaching process. I like to start with a quote about the reflective process, also referred to as reflective supervision, which is a process that works well for coaching VISTA members. Rebecca Shaman Chinook, an accomplished professional in the field of mental health, defines the reflective coaching process as a collaborative relationship for professional growth that improves program quality and practice by cherishing strengths and partnering around vulnerabilities to generate growth. Let's get more specific. The reflective process is based on the idea that coaching is a context for learning and professional development. The three building blocks of the reflective process are reflection, collaboration, and regularity. Take time to think about these ideas and how you might integrate them into your practice. Reflection involves both parties taking a step back from the member's work and thinking deeply about its meaning. Collaboration emphasizes the sharing of responsibility and open communication. It involves respectful mutual exchange and the full participation of both people. Regularity refers to consistent, reliable interactions or meetings that take place for an appropriate amount of time. Regularity is about regularly scheduled time and creating predictability and consistency. These three building blocks build members' growth. Let's look at listening, inquiry, and reflection in action. You'll hear me use the terms invite and guide. By this, I mean we are inviting a conversation and guiding the path of the conversation. I'm going to invite and guide at each step of the three stages of the reflective process. The first stage is when the member tells their story and focuses on details. During this stage, you invite the story of what is happening or what has happened and guide them through thinking about their thoughts and feelings. The second stage is when the member considers perspectives and focuses on other points of view. During this stage, you invite guesses about what happened or could have happened and guide them through thinking about others or additional thoughts and feelings. The third step, or the third stage, is when the member considers the planning of next steps and focuses on what has been learned from this conversation. During this step, you invite sharing of ideas about what's next and guide them through implementing those next steps. As a coach, you use active listening skills to show the member you are paying attention and are compassionate about their experience. You can ask about how the member responded to the experience or the interaction and what the member felt they did well or what is promising about their work or experience. This is a good way to close this part of the process. For the last part of the session, I want to share an effective coaching model that you may be able to use in conversations with your members. Let's take a look at a framework of coaching to give you some structure to use with your coaching sessions. Known as the GROW model, it's a fairly easy way to remember and can be very effective in the context of VISTA leaders and sponsors as coaches. G stands for goal. We start by getting the individual to set a goal by asking the question, what do you want to accomplish? Note that goals can change over time, but you'll find one to start with. Next is R, reality. This is getting a sense of what's happening now for the individual by asking, what is the current situation? Next is O, options. This is a brainstorming period, getting the individual to come up with actionable ideas. Ask questions like, what could you do now? Or how could you handle this differently the next time this situation comes up? And finally, W for a way forward. This is the planning and accountability piece. Asking things like, what will you do and by when? You're trying to get a commitment from the individual to take action on one of the options that they've identified earlier. Remember to keep laser focus on presence, providing perspective, and asking the right type of questions in a powerful conversation and make it effective way no matter how long the session may be. The three-step reflective coaching process creates transformational and tangible results for each step of the GROW coaching model. The G of the GROW model uses the three-step reflective coaching process to discover the goal. Once the goal is defined, the next step supports drilling it down. The R of the GROW model uses the three-step reflective coaching process to explore how to make the goal realistic. The O of the GROW model uses the three-step reflective coaching process to explore what the goal might be and how one might achieve it. The W of the GROW model uses the three-step reflective coaching process to define how the member will know that the goal was met. This is a quick look at the GROW coaching model framework with the reflective process. Let's use this framework to look again at Leslie's situation. Our voice actors, Elizabeth and Bethany, will role play a brief coaching conversation with Bethany taking the part of Leslie and Elizabeth as coach. Listen carefully because at the end, we'll have a chance to share your thoughts on what the coach could do next.
Leslie, you asked me what you should do. How about I support you through this with coaching? What do you think?
Sure, I'm open to it.
Okay, you mentioned that you're overwhelmed by your vast VAD and you feel frustrated with the lack of buy-in from the community. This is your first position after graduating, and you are from another state. Additionally, you are anxious and you're not sure if you can do this. Which one of these do you want to focus on? What do you want?
By asking Leslie which areas she wants to focus on, the coach is helping Leslie define her goal.
I want to work on understanding how to make sense of my VAD.
What's been in your experience so far with your VAD?
Now the coach is inviting Leslie to tell her story of what is happening.
I thought I knew where to start, but I have not accomplished what I thought I would have by this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's one thing you have accomplished and one that you haven't?
Well, I completed all my trainings, but I've not connected with the community organizations.
And what do you notice about how you feel about your accomplishments and your non-accomplishments?
With the coach asking Leslie about her feelings, she is guiding the member through the process of tuning into her feelings and thoughts.
I felt like I let you down since I have not connected with the community, and I felt proud that I successfully completed 30 hours of training and learned so much.
Completing 30 hours of training is definitely an accomplishment. What do you think made it possible for you to successfully complete all your trainings?
Here, the coach is inviting the member to guess about what happened and what allowed her to be successful.
Well, I reached out to you to talk about where I should start. From there, I decided on the order of the trainings based on how the topics built on each other, and then I created a schedule for them.
Wow, you demonstrated a great use of initiative, prioritization, and time management. How might you use those skills in this conversation to think about your next steps? Can you choose another goal in your VAD that you want to accomplish?
Now, the coach is inviting the member to consider ideas about what to focus on next or plan or implement in their next steps.
I think I might work on getting familiar with the community.
In this role play, the coach listened for an opening and demonstrated the reflective process by using listening, inquiry, and reflection, and started using the GROW framework to identify a goal. We hope that this example gives you some ideas on how to use these elements together in a conversation and helps build your confidence if you choose to implement coaching practices with your VISTA members. Now, Andy is going to guide us through our final activity.
Right. So as promised, we have one more activity, again, another poll question. This one is based on the scenario that you just heard play out. So how could the coach use the GROW framework to help Leslie in the next step? Four options here to explore how to make the goal realistic, identify resources to execute the goal, resolve lingering questions around the goal, or recognize that the goal has been met. So I'll give you a few seconds to get your thought in. Be sure you click submit so we'll see your response. All right, looks like most of you have responded, but I'll give you just a few more seconds to get your answer in if you'd like. Give you just a few more seconds. All right, looks like the answers have stopped, so we'll go ahead and end the poll and we'll reveal the answer. And for this one, we identified that A would be the best response. That is, explore how to make the goal realistic. So in the scenario, the coach prompted Leslie to focus on one thing that she wants to address, and then explored that to help Leslie identify the goal that she wanted to pursue. This was around connecting with community organizations. So the goal, the G in the GROW framework. So next would be R, making that goal realistic. And shortly behind that, I think, would be identifying resources around existing. So some of those other ones I think would come later on. But good work. Looks like many of you got that one correct. So excellent work on that. Now, Sharina has some resources to recommend for you.
Thank you, Andy. Before we go, I want to point out some resources for further study on this topic. These are also included in your handout. First is the International Coaching Federation. The ICF has evolved to becoming the hub for all things coaching. Second is the Center for Creative Leadership. The CCL is a top-ranked global nonprofit leader helping transform leaders. The last thing I'd like to leave you with today is a resource called The 100 Most Powerful Life Coaching Questions and How to Use Them from a website called Mindful Coaching Tools. It has been my pleasure to be here with you today to talk about this topic and to see you participate during this webinar. I hope that you feel prepared to help coach your members through a successful year of service. Be well.
Thank you so much, Sharina, for those great resources and really for such an enlightening presentation overall. I want to mention a resource to all of you as well. This is an update to the e-learning portion of Vista Member Orientation, the part that appears on the Vista campus. We've just updated 2 of the modules in VMO, the Welcome to Vista Member Orientation module and the Vista Terms and Conditions. The content of those 2 modules is very much the same. It's just presented in a new way. I'm mentioning it to you all because if someone completed the previous version of these modules and then they go back in to the Vista Member Orientation Learning Path, they'll see that their progress for those 2 modules has been reset and it'll show as pending again. So if that's the case, there's no need for them to go back and redo it. Of course, they're welcome to if they like, but no requirement there. We just want to help alleviate any confusion that might come if someone had completed it and then they go back in and notice that the status had changed. So that's why we wanted to make you aware. And if you want to take a look at these updated modules in the Vista Member Orientation, we'll post a link in the chat. And now we want to shift gears here to ask what you think about this webinar. We really appreciate hearing from you about what you found most valuable, what worked, and what else you might like to learn from us. So we've got a quick evaluation form. It's probably open already in the browser window behind this presentation. If not, we've got the link in the chat that you can click through as well to share your ideas. And thank you in advance for any feedback you have to offer. And now it's time to answer your questions. So as we mentioned earlier, if you have a question for Sharina, please use the Q&A panel. You can move your cursor to the bottom of the screen or just look at the bottom of your mobile device and click the Q&A button. Post your question there and we'll pose them to Sharina. I haven't yet seen any questions come in, but I don't want to assume that there aren't any, so we'll give you a little bit of time to ask a question. And while we're looking for that, just seeing some comments in here from folks who have an appreciation for the webinar and the information that was presented. I also want to give another plug for the handout. There is a link. If you scroll up a little bit, you'll see a link for the handout that goes along with this. It has a little bit more information about the practices, the 3 key coaching skills of listening, inquiry, and reflection. There are some sample question types that you could use in your own coaching conversations, just a way to help support your knowledge here. So thank you, Tessa, for posting that link again. Well, being that we don't have any questions, I want to take a moment to invite you to our next webinar coming up next month for leaders and sponsors is a webinar about recognizing member accomplishments. That'll be on Thursday, June 20th, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. I want to again thank our presenter, Sharina Davis, for sharing with us today. Also, thanks to our instructional designers and voice actors, Bethany DeSablin and Elizabeth Floyd, and others on our production team, Steve Gray and Tessa Marshall. Most of all, thank you for being with us and participating today. So that concludes our webinar. Again, thanks for being with us.